Hi, so today we're talking about how to keep track of your finances, business accounting, disclaimer, I'm not an accountant, but have been doing that myself for quite some time. And have been given like a checklist of the things that I need to provide to the accountant for them to be able to do the tax return for me. So chances are that as a personal tutor, you're self-employed tutor, so you'd be registered or would need to be registered with the HMRC as a sole trader. So you can go to the gov.uk website to do that if you haven't done already, and just register as yourself or with a company name if you use a company name, and your company name can just be your name. Register yourself as a sole trader, and then you'd be required to file your tax return every year. But you get, so when your tax year ends in April, you get until the next January to file for that tax year, so you get a fair amount of time to put together the records that you need. However, definitely recommend making it a regular habit to keep those up to date, because it's a lot of information to keep track on, and doing it after the event gets really awkward. So it's definitely a good idea to keep track of things automatically. You can use things like Xero or QuickBooks or Wave online invoicing and accounting, and it makes life a lot easier. I use Xero only because I think that's been out the longest. It integrates with my CRM, and it seems to do everything that I do. It allows, the accountant seems quite keen on it, and it will allow me to give the accountant and an admin access to the account software, so that they can do everything that they need to do without me having to share information with them. You can integrate your bank account feeds to them as well, so it's definitely worth having a separate account for your business. That makes life a lot easier, and entirely separate. So everything that you pay for, and all the money that you receive in relation to your tuition goes through that. That way you can just export your entire bank feed into the accounting software, reconcile all of the transactions against what category of payment they were, and any payments can be reconciled with any invoices that you've created. You can get a bookkeeper to do that for you if you have the funds to cover that, and it's less for you to do. So I definitely recommend looking at something like that. So once your accounts are completely separate, that makes life a hell of a lot easier. The only other thing that you'd need to do is potentially you might like to send your invoices through those as well, and I'd recommend that. They do set up a nice template for you. You can, if you've gone the same route as me, and you can link your accounting software with your CRM tool, the client details will export automatically to the accounting software, so that when you enter their name, you can automatically generate an invoice for them that includes their address details and everything else that you need in the invoice. And you can just set up your tuition as a product that you're entering into the invoice, and set the rates for the tuition, so that you just have to type in how many hours of tuition each person has had, and it will calculate the cost and send it straight through to them. It will become different if you're registered as a limited company, if you're VAT registered, a whole other world. And I would definitely recommend, regardless whether you're a sole trader or a limited company, or whatever type of business you're operating, that it's worth having an accountant to do your tax return for you, because there's so many extra things to consider. There's the laws and allowances are constantly changing, and it's their job to keep up with that. So they will pretty much always be able to save you money on your tax return, and you can definitely find an accountant who charges less than the money that they will save you by doing your tax return for you. So it's definitely a worthwhile investment, and it takes away a lot of the stress so that you can focus on being a tutor, which is what you want to do. So the things to keep track on, obviously your invoices, so how much you've billed the client, so keep track of the lessons that they've had. And I'd always recommend billing in advance for the lessons. So that is what, if you've used the customer service agreement template that I shared, that was the terms in there. You should always bill in advance, because it gives you extra standing for people that mess about. I have been bitten with that, where people have booked a bunch of lessons, and they'd actually already been declared bankrupt, and they just disappeared and didn't pay for any of them. They'd booked them in the last minute before their GCSEs, so I wanted to ease the pressure, sent them a bill and didn't chase the payment, and they'd had lessons several days a week for a couple of weeks because they were trying to cram it all in before the exams. In actual fact, they were cramming it all in before they were evicted from their house with absolutely no trace. So that was lots of money lost for someone that had been declared bankrupt and therefore had no money to pay me. It's lovely. So I would always recommend, I mean, that's one example, but I would definitely recommend that you bill for the lessons in advance. And if you use the customer service agreement template that I shared, then you have every justification to not deliver a lesson that hasn't been paid for. It's nice to build good relations with your customers, but don't leave yourself at a disadvantage in doing so. Besides the invoices, you should keep track of anything that you spend money on. So keep track of your mileage, because that's an expense that you can claim for if you're actually travelling to lessons. If you're delivering the lessons in your house, you can keep track of all the expenses associated with your house, because you can claim for portions of that. So any bills that you pay, maintenance and repairs, water rates, electricity, phone bill, internet bill, things like that, keep track of. You'll need to separate out TV, because if you're having a package, because that's not part of your business, but keep track of all of these things. Any stationery that you pay for, any software that you pay for, so if you pay for a CRM, if you pay for the accounting software, if you pay for a website, anything like that that's associated with your business, keep track of those fees. Obviously, if you're paying through it all through a business account, it'll be listed there, but it's a good idea to regularly do a budget and bookkeeping to keep, so that you're aware of how much your business is costing you each month, and how much you're putting, how much is going out of your account as a result of your business compared to how much is coming in. So then you can see the return on any investments that you're making. And you can kind of forecast when you know, you get into the flow of what times of the year are going to be busy and what kind of times of the year are going to be quiet. You know when people are going to do their exams, how long they're going to stick with you, and they're generally going to stick with you up until the exams, but some won't. So you have an idea of how much money you're going to have coming in for the rest of the academic year. So you can keep track of how much you can afford to invest. And it's a good idea to invest in coaching programs and other things, and trying out new softwares. And you won't have the confidence to do that if you haven't kept track of what money you have coming in to your account and going out for your account. I'm going to make another video where I'm going to go through some of the software that I use and the template that you can use to keep track of your incomings and outgoings in Excel, if you'd like to use that, because that's a nice way to get started without having to get used to any new software. But I'd recommend, if you're able to give the accounting software a go. I think they're all fairly similar, operate in slightly different ways, but they do the same thing. And they all should be able to be quite happily handed over to an accountant or a bookkeeper or an admin. But Xero seems to be the one that most people did use, and QuickBooks seems to be taking over more recently. I didn't get on very well with QuickBooks. I quite like Xero, but it's entirely up to you. If you have any specific questions about any of those things, give me a shout. But otherwise, have a look at the templates and see how you get on with setting up your accounting and bookkeeping, which is probably one of the more tedious things that one has to do in business. So the easier you can make it for yourself, the better it will be going forward. And it's quite nice to be able to see those numbers going up as things grow for you. So best of luck with that.